here at ADP to showcase their partnership with Executive Conversation for the national launch of their Workforce Now solution. This partnership brought a key emerging learning trend to life by delivering real-world training in a virtual classroom. The result was an experience highly relevant to the learner that could be immediately applied on the job. Key objectives for this engagement included training ADP sales teams on the business value of Workforce Now solutions and equipping them to credibly sell to executives. With me today are the key members of ADP's management team behind the successful launch of Workforce Now. First, Ken Powell, Vice President of Sales Learning and Performance. Ken, welcome.
Thanks, Pat.
We also have Angelique Sweeney, Director of Major Accounts Sales Learning and Performance. Welcome, Angelique.
Thank you. Good morning, Pat.
And Kimbra Fox, Vice President of Marketing for Major Account Services. Welcome, Kimbra.
Good morning, Pat.
And finally, from Executive Conversation, I'm joined by Ed Gentili, one of the consulting executives involved in the engagement. Ed has more than 20 years of corporate financial experience as a CFO at ExxonMobil and later leading DirecTV Latin America's Treasury and Financial Planning Groups. Welcome, Ed.
Thanks, Pat.
Ken, let's start with you. What was your strategic vision, and what were your key learning objectives in choosing to partner with Executive Conversation?
Thanks, Pat. You know, it's pretty simple. In today's world, it's more and more important than ever to figure out a quick and cost-effective means to deliver training to a large population. Generally, it has to be done in a virtual environment, and the critical component is bringing a real-world scenario to life in a way that the sales associates can connect with. In this case, what we did to overcome that was we brought in C-level executives to help us with our key learning objectives, which were understanding and demonstrating the value of the ADP Workforce Now solution. It was helping us gain access at the C-level. And finally, what we were attempting to do is once we have that individual on the phone, deliver a compelling value proposition in a way that connected with them.
Angelique, ADP has been focusing on connecting with financial buyers, specifically C-level decision makers, for quite some time. So why the partnership with Executive Conversation now?
Well, we really wanted to provide a real-world aspect to the learning event and incorporate actual C-level executives that could provide coaching and feedback specifically from that C-suite perspective. So Executive Conversation was able to work outside the box to align with ADP's specific learning objectives. And we really liked how they incorporated the use of our actual customer accounts into the learning plan versus relying on generic case studies that really had no relevancy. Perhaps most importantly, their experience and expertise working in a virtual learning environment was very well received by our sales teams.
Now, you mentioned virtual learning. Tell me more about your experience with Executive Conversation's ability to deliver remote leader-led sessions. For example, what about the audience led you to choose virtual learning?
Well, our audience consisted of over 1,200 associates across 4 time zones in 70 locations. So we had to find a way to bring real-world executive perspective to life. So by using a virtual environment, we were able to coordinate a blended learning model that enabled us to work with associates over a period of weeks prior to the live launch. And then on the day of the launch, the virtual environment allowed us to leverage the C-level executives on a national scope, which proved an extremely effective way of developing sales skills.
How were you able to accomplish this using virtual classrooms?
You know, we really leaned into our sales leadership teams. With over 70 regional locations, we leveraged our sales leaders to facilitate the experience across the country. Webcams were also a key component to our success. We had webcams and executives assigned by time zone, so we were able to engage in multiple sales associate role plays with real-time coaching and feedback from the executives that the entire country could benefit from. From a technology standpoint, Executive Conversation was used to working with this type of setup with the webcams and the virtual environments, so they were equipped to deliver highly interactive sessions in this virtual modality.
So Ken, what feedback have you heard from the sales organization about working with the C-level executives from Executive Conversation?
You know, there's a couple general themes that have risen to the surface. First, they really valued working with C-level executives. And the result is that at this point, they understand their perspective much better. It's created a huge boost in confidence and credibility in selling into the C-suite. And I hear time and time again, this is one of the best trainings they've ever received.
Now, Ed, you were a part of this engagement from the start. So from your perspective, tell us what you saw that made this learning plan so successful.
In my experience, I have unfortunately had a large number of the sales representatives come into my office unprepared. They're not really sure what the issue is they're here to talk about or how what they can offer helps me in any way. What I saw with ADP was a rapid transformation in quickly identifying what the client initiatives, objectives, strategic goals were, and linking the ADP solution to that with value that would interest any executive for any client.
Well, thanks, Ed. Now, Kimbra, I understand that your marketing team developed a campaign that was instrumental to the success of this learning event as well. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. We've developed a multi-touch approach that works well in cutting through the clutter and getting noticed by the C-level. And since this was a new product launch, we provided advanced copies of the white paper and campaign materials to our sales, learning, and performance team so they could incorporate the messaging into the virtual learning pre-work. We showcased samples of the campaign in the 70 locations on training day, and on training day, each sales associate focused on calling just those C-levels they'd personally targeted for the campaign and who'd recently received the email and three-dimensional mailer. By partnering with sales, learning, and performance on the messaging, marketing was able to focus on all the other elements of the product launch, such as PR, analyst briefings, search engine marketing, and other go-to-market activities.
Can you share any results from the learning event?
Absolutely. ADP Workforce Now is one of our most successful product launches, with over 1,300 appointments scheduled in just a couple hours of calling on training day. And in just 3.5 months, we've already experienced a 10-to-1 return on the campaign investment, which is great.
And Ken, in wrapping up, let me ask, what would you say to other companies considering working with Executive Conversation?
I'd say they were great. I would recommend Executive Conversation without hesitation. I found them highly proficient in using a virtual classroom, very capable of tailoring learning to our objectives. And if you're looking for an organization that can provide access to C-level executives, Executive Conversation is a great fit.
And Angelique, your thoughts on working with Executive Conversation?
I agree with Ken. Partnering with Executive Conversation was a great decision. It gave our team the opportunity to work directly with C-level executives, and Executive Conversation's flexibility to deliver virtually, along with their willingness to work specifically with ADP's learning objectives, ultimately created a very powerful learning experience.
Well, everyone, thank you for taking the time to talk with us about your positive experience working with Executive Conversation. Have fun and good selling.